programa começa num bate-papo com o jornalista americano Michael Sledge. Um dos destaques da última Flip, Sledge estreou na literatura com um romance sobre o amor entre a poeta Elizabeth Bishop, que nasceu há 100 anos, e a urbanista brasileira Lota de Soares.
Arrival at Santos. Here is a coast. Here is a harbor. Here, after a meager diet of horizon, is some scenery. She was a person who had suffered tremendous personal tragedy. She lost her father when she was maybe 9 months old, and her mother shortly after was institutionalized in a mental hospital. She never saw her mother after she was 5. She had a problem with alcohol. Until she came to Brazil, she'd never lived anywhere for more than 6 months. She knew she needed to leave. She needed to get away from how she had constructed her life. So she decided she was going to get on a ship. She was going to go to Europe. So she went to buy a ticket, and she was so desperate. She's like, I need to leave now. And there was not a ship available to Europe, but there was one available to South America. The ship crossed the equator sometime in the night. Elizabeth sat on deck among the crates of cargo bound for South America, taking shelter from the damp wind. So she thought, I'll go to Rio, I'll stay 2 weeks, and then we'll see what happens, I'll keep going. Well, she got to Rio and she never left.
And why she decided to extend from 15 days to 15 years?
Well, that's what happens when you fall in love. She met the famous Lota, who was unlike anyone else. Though I have to say that, to back up a little, she had met Lota and Lota's companion at that time, his name was Mary. She had met them in New York maybe 5 years earlier. So she knew that they were in Rio and she came to visit. She went over and had dinner. She fell horribly ill and she never left the house. She had eaten a cashew that she was terribly allergic to, and her entire body became inflamed. So she stayed at the house. 2 weeks later, Lota said, you're staying with me. And Lota said to Mary, you're going to live somewhere else. And that's all I know. It's my job in my book to imagine what happened in those 2 weeks. How could one's world shift so completely for all three of those people?
Mas ficar doente no Brasil é outra coisa. É como se botasse você no colo. E pensando bem, eu estava precisando tanto disso.
She was famously closed about her personal life. Her poems they predate a kind of school of confessional poetry that she abhorred. She hated the idea of using your own personal experience in a work of art that you're going to put out in the public. She thought that was just somehow immoral, especially if you used someone else's life. As I did with
letters.
her. As I did with her. I mean, I used to always think like she would hate that I'm using her life to write a book that is interesting to me. My intent was to be immensely respectful and compassionate towards these two people. I did not highlight anything kind of salacious or sensational. You know, I wasn't interested in showing her in drunken scenes. I mean, just for that effect. You know, her relationship with women is known now. It's no secret. So that's no big deal. So there wasn't really anything that I revealed, that I exploited, I feel. Oh, tourist, is this how this country is going to answer you and your immodest demands for a different world and a better life, in complete comprehension of both at last and immediately after 18 days of suspension?
How did you decide to put her writings on the book? You have specific phrases took from the letters, and how about her poetry?
Well, I definitely wanted her voice, and so I start each of the 3 sections with poems that felt particularly significant for that arc of her life. It was a difficult balance because I wanted that just to hear her voice, I wanted to invite her in to this collaborative project that she had no choice over. But at the same time, I didn't want it to overpower or overshadow the story I was writing. Elizabeth wrote through the night. It was extremely cold. As the dark hours lengthened, she added sweaters one by one, finally pulling a heavy blanket over her shoulders.
The title in Brazil of your book, in English, is The Moral Union, and in Portuguese, it's The Art of Losing.
The English title for me, it comes from a dedication Elizabeth wrote to Lota in her book, Questions of Travel, which for me indicates we all hope to be loved, we all want to be loved and have someone love us. But I think maybe even a greater gift is the opportunity to love deeply, that it opens you to the world in a completely different and new and profound way. And I think Elizabeth had never had that experience before, and that Lota offered her that experience, and that she was incredibly grateful. I was worried at first that The Art of Losing emphasized loss, which wasn't what I wanted to emphasize. I didn't want it, I don't think of it as a story of loss. Then the poem that comes from is called One Art.
Aceite austero, a chave perdida, a hora gasta bestamente, arte de perder, não é nenhum mistério.
It's about how much we all must let go of in life. It's a beautiful elegiac, but a beautiful tone also for this book. An hour later, Lota passed by once more. Without stopping, she resettled the blanket that had slipped from Elizabeth's shoulder. It amused her that Lota would not dream of interrupting, not even to say good morning or to ask how the work was progressing. In Lota's view, artistic creation occurred through a mystical channeling of the gods and was not to be interfered with.
Stranger, all about you. This much.